Most people would walk right past this penny without a second thought. It looks ordinary, worn, forgettable. But what if I told you that this small copper coin from 1967 was born during one of the most unusual periods in American coin history, a time when the U.S. Mint intentionally erased mint marks, changed metals, and quietly created pennies that still puzzle collectors today? This is the 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that doesn't shout its story, but whispers it to those who know where to look. At first glance, the 1967 Lincoln penny looks exactly like what you'd expect. Abraham Lincoln faces right on the front, calm and familiar, just as he had since 1909. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, a design Americans had already seen for nearly a decade by that point. There is no mint mark below the date, no flashy detail, nothing that immediately signals importance. And yet, that missing mint mark is exactly where the story begins. To understand this coin, you have to travel back to the mid-1960s, a stressful time for the U.S. Mint and the American economy. Coin shortages were everywhere. People were hoarding coins, believing silver issues and older cents might become more valuable. Vending machines, parking meters, and everyday commerce were affected. The government needed coins in circulation fast. In response, the U.S. Mint made a bold decision. From 1965 through 1967, mint marks were removed from all coins. Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco coins were struck without any identifying letter. The goal was simple: stop collectors from hoarding coins based on mint location and push more coins back into everyday use. The 1967 Lincoln penny was part of this emergency-era solution. Millions upon millions were produced, but without mint marks, and without the usual proof coin sets collectors were used to. Even special collector versions struck in San Francisco carried no mint mark at all. This alone makes 1967 a fascinating year, because it breaks the rules most people think they know about U.S. coins. Now let's talk about what this penny is actually made of. The 1967 Lincoln cent is composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc, the classic bronze composition used for decades before later changes. Each coin weighs about 3.11 grams and has a warm, reddish-brown tone when well preserved. Over time, circulation often darkened these coins, but uncirculated examples still show vibrant color that collectors love. Design-wise, nothing radical changed in 1967, but subtle details matter. Lincoln's portrait, designed by Victor David Brenner, remains sharp on higher-grade coins. The lettering, especially Liberty and In God We Trust, is crisp on coins that avoided heavy circulation. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial's tiny details, including the faint statue of Lincoln inside the building, can help determine condition and value. So if millions were made, why does this penny matter at all? The answer lies in condition, context, and mistakes. While the average 1967 penny in worn condition is worth only face value, collectors hunt aggressively for coins that survived in exceptional shape. Coins graded in high mint state, especially those with full red color, can sell for surprisingly strong prices. A 1967 Lincoln cent graded MS67 red by a major grading service has sold at auction for several $100s. In rare cases, near-perfect examples have approached or exceeded the $1,000 mark. Then there are error coins, where the real excitement begins. Some 1967 pennies were struck off-center, leaving part of the design missing. Others show doubled dies, where letters appear slightly shadowed due to a misaligned die during production. There are examples with clipped planchets, where a piece of the metal blank was missing before the strike. These errors turn an ordinary penny into a highly collectible piece of mint history. Collectors also pay close attention to strike quality. Because the mint was producing coins at an enormous pace in 1967, many coins were weakly struck. Finding one with sharp details on both sides is far less common than you might think. If you're wondering how to tell a real 1967 penny from a fake or altered coin, the good news is that counterfeiting this date is rare. Still, there are a few things to watch for. The coin should weigh close to 3.11 grams. A significantly lighter coin may indicate damage or alteration. The color should be consistent with aged copper, not overly shiny or oddly tinted. And remember, the absence of a mint mark is correct for this year. Adding or removing a mint mark is a common trick on other dates, but not here. Magnification helps. Look closely at the date and lettering. Authentic coins show smooth, natural wear. Altered coins often show tool marks, rough edges, or unnatural spacing in the numbers. One surprising fact about the 1967 penny is that while proof coins were made that year, they were different from traditional proofs. Known as special mint set coins, these pennies were struck with better care than circulation coins, but without mirror-like proof finishes. They still have no mint mark, yet they display a sharper appearance that collectors can recognize. Another interesting detail is that many people assume no mint mark always means Philadelphia. In most years, that's true. But from 1965 to 1967, that assumption doesn't fully apply. Coins from all mints shared the same look, making 1967 one of the few years where mint origin is intentionally hidden. Collectors today love the 1967 Lincoln penny, not because it's flashy or rare in raw numbers, but because it represents a turning point. It tells a story of economic pressure, government response, and mass production on a scale rarely seen before. It also offers an accessible entry point into coin collecting. You might already own one without realizing it. This penny rewards patience. The more carefully you look, the more you notice. Color, strike, surface marks, tiny errors that most people miss. It's a coin that teaches collectors how to slow down and observe. And perhaps that's why it still matters today. In a world obsessed with instant value, the 1967 no mint mark Lincoln penny reminds us that history often hides in plain sight. Sometimes the most ordinary objects carry the most unusual stories. So the next time you see a 1967 penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Hold it. Look closely. Ask where it's been. Because even a single cent can carry the weight of an entire moment in American history. Most people would walk right past this coin without a second thought. It looks ordinary. It feels familiar. But hidden inside the 1968 mint mark Lincoln penny is a story of history, quiet rarity, and surprising value that very few people ever take the time to understand. The 1968 Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced by the United States Mint, with a small letter S beneath the date. That single letter tells us this coin was struck at the San Francisco Mint. To the average person, it is just another brown penny. To collectors, it represents an important moment in American coin history, a turning point after years of change, shortages, and mistakes. To understand this coin, we need to go back to the late 1960s. The United States was going through major transitions. The country had recently experienced a nationwide coin shortage in the mid-1960s. People were hoarding coins, silver was being pulled from circulation, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure to restore public confidence in American money. Because of this shortage, mint marks were temporarily removed from coins between 1965 and 1967 to discourage collecting and hoarding. In 1968, mint marks officially returned. That alone makes this year important. The 1968 Lincoln penny was one of the first pennies in years to proudly display its mint origin again. The mint mark signaled that San Francisco was back in full production, but with a new role. By this time, the San Francisco Mint was transitioning away from producing everyday circulation coins and toward producing proof coins and collector-quality pieces. The Lincoln penny design itself was already familiar by 1968. The front of the coin shows President Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. This design had been used since 1909 and was the first time a real historical person appeared on a U.S. circulating coin. Lincoln faces right, with the words "In God We Trust" above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the date along with the mint mark to the right. On the back, the coin features the Lincoln Memorial, which had replaced the wheat stalk design in 1959. If you look closely, you can actually see a tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, making it one of the most detailed designs ever used on a penny. The 1968 S penny was made primarily of copper, specifically a bronze alloy of copper, tin, and zinc. This was before the major composition change of 1982, when pennies shifted to mostly zinc. Because of this, the coin has a solid feel and a warm tone that many collectors prefer over modern pennies. Now here is where things get interesting. There are actually two major types of 1968 S Lincoln pennies. One was made for everyday circulation, and the other was made as a proof coin specifically for collectors. Proof coins were struck with specially prepared dies and polished blanks, resulting in sharper details and mirror-like surfaces. Most people are surprised to learn that the San Francisco Mint produced both proof and non-proof pennies in 1968. Circulation strikes from San Francisco are less common than those from Philadelphia or Denver. While millions were made, far fewer survived in high condition because pennies are often used, damaged, or discarded. Rarity does not always mean low mintage. Sometimes rarity means survival. High-quality 1968 S pennies, especially those with full details, strong color, and no damage, are much harder to find than most people realize. Collectors pay special attention to condition. A worn 1968 S penny is usually worth only face value, but a well-preserved example can be worth significantly more. Coins graded in top mint state condition by professional grading services can sell for impressive prices. Proof versions are even more desirable. A 1968 S proof penny with deep mirrored fields and strong contrast between the design and background can be worth several dollars, and in perfect condition, sometimes much more. Proof coins with what collectors call deep cameo contrast are especially prized. There are also known errors and variations associated with the 1968 S penny. Some examples show doubled dies, where parts of the lettering appear slightly doubled due to a mistake during the die creation process. Others may show off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or weak strikes. These errors are not common, and when confirmed, they can dramatically increase a coin's value. Auction records show that top-grade 1968 S pennies have sold for hundreds of dollars. In rare cases, pristine examples with perfect surfaces and strong color have crossed the $1,000 mark. These are not everyday finds, but they prove that even a modern-looking penny can hold serious value under the right conditions. Because value depends so heavily on authenticity and condition, identifying a real 1968 S penny is important. First, look at the date and the mint mark. The S should be small, clear, and positioned just below the date. It should look natural, not stamped or added later. Fake mint marks do exist, usually added to coins that were originally struck in Philadelphia. Next, check the weight. A genuine 1968 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. Significant deviations may indicate damage or tampering. The color should also be consistent with aged copper, not painted or altered. For proof coins, the surfaces should be smooth and reflective, almost mirror-like. The details should be sharp, especially on Lincoln's hair and the lettering. If the coin looks dull or grainy, it is likely a regular circulation strike, not a proof. One fascinating fact about the 1968 S penny is that it represents the rebirth of collector-focused minting in the United States. After years of disruption, proof sets returned in full force, and collectors once again trusted the mint to produce high-quality coins. Another surprising detail is how many of these coins were saved but later mishandled. Many proof pennies were removed from their original sets and stored improperly, leading to spots, fingerprints, and toning. Truly flawless examples are much rarer today than the original production numbers suggest. Collectors love the 1968 Lincoln penny because it sits at the crossroads of history and accessibility. It is old enough to feel historic, yet modern enough that people might still find one in inherited collections, old drawers, or forgotten coin jars. It also appeals to beginners and advanced collectors alike. New collectors can afford entry-level examples, while advanced collectors chase top-grade specimens and rare errors. This wide appeal keeps demand steady and interest strong. There is also an emotional side. Many collectors remember seeing these pennies in circulation during childhood. Holding one brings back memories of simpler times, school lunch lines, and pocket change. Coins are not just metal, they are time capsules. As we look ahead, interest in classic copper pennies continues to grow. Rising copper prices, shrinking supplies of high-grade examples, and renewed curiosity about American history all play a role. The 1968 penny may never be common again in pristine condition. So the next time you see a penny with a small S beneath the date, pause for a moment. Look closer. You might be holding a piece of American history that tells a story far bigger than its 1 cent face value. Sometimes the most ordinary objects carry the most extraordinary stories. And sometimes, the coin you almost ignore is the one worth remembering. Most people would never look twice at a 1975 penny. It looks ordinary, it feels ordinary, and it usually ends up forgotten in a jar or drawer. But what if I told you that some 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies are quietly worth far more than 1 cent? And that a few rare examples have sold for prices that shock even long-time collectors. This is the story of the 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin most Americans have handled, yet very few truly understand. The 1975 Lincoln penny is a 1 cent coin produced by the United States Mint during a time of major change in America. If your penny from this year has no mint mark under the date, that means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. At that time, Philadelphia pennies did not carry a mint mark, so no mint mark is actually normal for this coin. In 1975, the country was still adjusting after the economic turbulence of the early 1970s. Inflation was high, metal prices were rising, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure to produce massive numbers of coins for everyday use. Pennies were needed everywhere, and the Lincoln cent remained one of the most heavily circulated coins in America. That year, the Philadelphia Mint struck billions of Lincoln pennies. On the surface, this makes the 1975 no-mint mark penny seem extremely common, and in most cases it is. But hidden among these ordinary coins are rare varieties, high-grade survivors, and error coins that tell a very different story. The design of the 1975 Lincoln penny follows the familiar look that Americans had known for decades. On the front, or obverse, is the portrait of President Abraham Lincoln. This design was created by sculptor Victor David Brenner and first appeared in 1909 to honor Lincoln's 100th birthday. Above Lincoln's head is the word liberty. In front of his face is the motto, "In God We Trust." Below the date is where a mint mark would appear, but on Philadelphia coins from 1975, there is nothing there. On the reverse side, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial. This design was introduced in 1959 and was used until 2008. The words United States of America curve along the top. E pluribus unum appears above the memorial, and 1 cent is displayed at the bottom. The coin is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. The standard composition used before copper prices forced major changes in later decades. Each penny weighs about 3.11 grams and has a warm, reddish-brown tone when new. So far, everything sounds ordinary, but the real interest begins when you look closer. What makes some 1975 no-mint mark pennies special is not the date alone, but how they were struck. Errors and unusual conditions during minting created a small number of coins that stand out dramatically from the rest. One of the most talked about errors is the double die obverse. On these coins, parts of the design appear doubled, especially in the lettering and the date. This doubling is not caused by damage or wear, but by a mistake during the die creation process. True doubled die coins are highly collectible, and even subtle examples can be valuable. Another category is off-center strikes. These occur when the coin blank is not properly aligned during striking, causing part of the design to be missing. If the date is still visible, off-center pennies can command strong prices. There are also clipped planchets, where a portion of the metal blank is missing before the coin is struck, creating a smooth, curved cut along the edge. These errors are genuine mint mistakes and are sought after by collectors. Then there are pennies struck on the wrong metal. While extremely rare, some Lincoln cents from the 1970s were accidentally struck on planchets intended for other denominations or even foreign coins. If authenticated, these errors can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. But error coins are only one part of the story. Condition plays a massive role in the value of a 1975 no-mint mark penny. Most examples spent years in circulation, picking up scratches, dull surfaces, and wear. However, a small number survived in nearly perfect condition. Collectors use a grading scale to evaluate coins, with higher grades representing better preservation. A 1975 penny graded at the very top of the scale, with full original luster and no visible wear, is surprisingly rare. Because billions were made, most people assume perfect examples are easy to find. In reality, pennies were rarely saved with care in the 1970s. They were used, abused, and overlooked. As a result, truly pristine examples can bring impressive prices. In certified auctions, high-grade 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies have sold for hundreds of dollars. Some examples graded at the highest known levels have reached into the low thousands, especially when competition between collectors drives bidding higher. Error coins tell an even more dramatic story. A verified double die 1975 penny can sell for several $100s, depending on the strength of the doubling and overall condition. Major off-metal or dramatic error coins have sold for well over $1,000. These are not everyday finds, but they do exist. And that possibility is what keeps collectors searching through rolls, jars, and old collections. If you believe you have a valuable 1975 no-mint mark penny, identification is crucial. First, check that the coin truly has no mint mark below the date. Remember, this alone does not make it rare. Next, examine the coin under good lighting and magnification. Look closely at the lettering, especially Liberty and In God We Trust. Doubling should appear as clear separation, not flat shadows or damage. Weigh the coin using a precise digital scale. A standard copper penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. Any significant difference could indicate an off-metal strike, though damage can also affect weight. Inspect the edges and shape. Genuine mint errors have smooth, natural surfaces. Sharp cuts, file marks, or irregular damage are signs of post-mint alteration, not valuable errors. Most importantly, never clean the coin. Cleaning removes original surfaces and can destroy collector value instantly. Even a rare error can lose much of its worth if cleaned. Professional authentication is strongly recommended for anything unusual. Reputable grading services can confirm whether a coin is genuine and assign an official grade that collectors trust. There are also some fun and surprising facts about the 1975 penny. In the mid-1970s, the U.S. Mint was actively researching alternatives to copper due to rising costs. While the 1975 penny remained copper, it was produced during a period of experimentation that led to major changes just a few years later. Another interesting detail is that while millions of Americans saved coins from earlier decades, very few intentionally saved 1970s pennies. This makes high-quality survivors less common than the raw mintage numbers suggest. Collectors also enjoy the challenge of the Lincoln Memorial Series. Many try to assemble complete date and mint mark sets in top condition, and the 1975 no mint mark penny is one of the tougher coins to find in flawless shape. Today, collectors love this coin not because it is flashy, but because it represents the hidden side of modern coin collecting. It proves that even ordinary coins can become extraordinary under the right circumstances. The 1975 no mint mark Lincoln penny reminds us that value is not always obvious. Sometimes it is hidden in condition, in tiny details, or in rare mistakes that went unnoticed for decades. So the next time you see a simple brown penny dated 1975, don't dismiss it too quickly. Look closer. Check the details, because somewhere out there, a small number of these humble coins carry stories, history, and value far beyond 1 cent. And who knows? The most ordinary coin in your pocket today might be the most interesting discovery you make tomorrow. Imagine finding a penny in your pocket that looks completely ordinary, yet carries a hidden story from a turning point in American history. A coin so common that millions of people overlook it, yet so fascinating that collectors still search for the right one today. This is the story of the 1971 no mint mark Lincoln penny. The 1971 Lincoln penny is a 1 cent coin produced by the United States Mint during a time of major change in the country. When people talk about a no mint mark penny, they are referring to coins that were made at the Philadelphia Mint. During this era, the Philadelphia Mint did not place a mint mark on pennies, so the absence of a letter under the date is actually a clue to where the coin was made. At first glance, this coin may not seem special. It does not sparkle like gold, and it does not carry a dramatic design change. But like many everyday objects from the past, its value and interest come from its history, its details, and the rare exceptions hidden among millions of ordinary pieces. To understand this coin, we need to step back to the year 1971. The United States was in the middle of social, economic, and political change. The Vietnam War was still ongoing. Inflation was becoming a concern. Americans were using cash every day, and coins like the Lincoln penny passed through countless hands at grocery stores, gas stations, and movie theaters. The Lincoln penny design used in 1971 had already been around for decades. The obverse, or front, features the profile of President Abraham Lincoln. This design was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. It was the first time a real person appeared on a regular circulating U.S. coin, which made it historic from the very beginning. On the reverse side of the 1971 penny, you will see the Lincoln Memorial. This design was introduced in 1959 and remained in use until 2008. If you look closely at the memorial, you can actually see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside it. This small detail has fascinated collectors for generations. The 1971 no mint mark penny was made primarily for everyday use. The U.S. Mint produced an enormous number of them because pennies were essential for daily transactions. Millions upon millions were struck, making most examples very common today. In terms of composition, the 1971 penny is made mostly of copper. Specifically, it contains about 95% copper and 5% zinc. This is important because just 1 year later, in 1972, copper prices were rising, and by 1982, the mint would switch to a mostly zinc composition. As a result, the 1971 penny represents the end of an era when pennies were still heavy with copper. The weight of a standard 1971 penny is about 3.11 grams. It has a smooth edge and a warm reddish-brown color when well preserved. Over time, many of these coins darkened or developed spots from circulation, which is perfectly normal. So if millions were made, why do people still care about the 1971 no-mint mark penny? The answer lies in condition, errors, and the human love of finding something special in something ordinary. Most 1971 pennies are worth just 1 cent. That is the honest truth. But collectors are not searching for the average, worn-down coin. They are looking for pennies in exceptional condition or with unusual minting mistakes. One factor that increases value is condition. A 1971 penny that has never been used in circulation, often called an uncirculated coin, can be worth several dollars. Coins with bright red color and sharp details are especially desirable. Professional grading services evaluate these coins and assign them grades. The higher the grade, the higher the potential value. In rare cases, a 1971 penny in near-perfect condition has sold for over $100 at auction. These examples are few and far between, but they show how condition alone can turn a common coin into a collectible. Then there are mint errors. Errors occur when something goes wrong during the minting process. These mistakes were not intentional, and most were caught before coins left the mint. However, some slipped through and entered circulation. One known error is the off-center strike. This happens when the blank coin is not properly aligned during striking, causing part of the design to be missing. Another error involves doubled letters or numbers, where parts of the design appear slightly repeated. There are also clipped planchets, where a piece of the coin is missing due to a cutting error. Error coins from 1971 can be worth significantly more than normal examples. Depending on the type and severity of the error, some have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars to serious collectors. There have been real auction sales that show this difference clearly. A normal circulated 1971 penny might sell for a few cents in bulk. An uncirculated example with strong red color might sell for $10 to $50. A well-documented error coin can sell for several $100s, sometimes more. Of course, not every unusual-looking penny is valuable. Damage from everyday use like scratches or dents does not increase value. In fact, it often lowers it. This is why knowing how to identify a genuine collectible coin is important. To identify a real 1971 no-mint mark penny, start with the date. Look closely at the numbers. They should be clear and evenly shaped. Under the date, there should be no letter. If you see a D or an S, that coin was made in Denver or San Francisco, not Philadelphia. Next, check the weight if you can. A genuine copper penny from 1971 should weigh close to 3.11 grams. A significantly lighter coin may be damaged or altered. Examine the surface under good lighting. Real mint errors usually show smooth, natural-looking mistakes that are part of the metal itself. Fake errors often look rough, scratched, or forced. If something looks too dramatic or unnatural, it may not be genuine. For valuable coins, many collectors choose to have them authenticated and graded by a professional service. This removes doubt and helps establish market value. There are also some fun and surprising facts about the 1971 penny. Because it contains so much copper, its metal value has sometimes approached or exceeded 1 cent during periods of high copper prices. This is one reason people began hoarding older pennies in later years. Another interesting detail is how many hands a single penny can pass through. A 1971 penny may have been used by someone buying a newspaper, then saved in a jar, then spent again decades later. Each coin carries an invisible record of everyday American life. Collectors today love the 1971 no-mint mark penny, not because it is rare by default, but because it represents possibility. It reminds people that valuable collectibles do not always start out as luxury items. Sometimes they begin as pocket change. This coin also appeals to new collectors. It is affordable, easy to find, and rich in history. For many people, searching through old pennies becomes a gateway into the larger world of coin collecting. The 1971 penny is also a reminder that value is not only about money. It is about history, craftsmanship, and curiosity. Holding a coin from 1971 is like holding a small piece of the past, quietly waiting to be noticed. So the next time you see a 1971 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, take a moment to look at it closely. Check its color, its details, and its condition. You may be holding an ordinary coin, or you may be holding something with a story worth far more than 1 cent. And that is what makes coins like this so fascinating. Hidden in plain sight, they invite us to slow down, look closer, and wonder what else might be waiting to be discovered in the smallest places. Have you ever picked up a penny and wondered if it might be hiding a secret? What if a single cent, made the same year America was celebrating its 200th birthday, could be worth far more than 1 cent today? This is the story of the 1976 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin most people overlook, yet one that holds history, surprises, and real collector interest. The 1976 Lincoln penny is a United States 1 cent coin produced during a very special year in American history. While quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins in 1976 proudly displayed dual dates and special bicentennial designs, the Lincoln cent quietly continued its traditional look. No fireworks, no special wording, just Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. And yet, that simplicity is exactly what makes this penny so fascinating. When a 1976 penny has no mint mark, it means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. At that time, Philadelphia did not place a mint mark on cents. So millions of Americans have handled this exact type of coin without ever realizing where it came from or why it matters. To understand this coin, we need to step back into 1976. The United States was celebrating 200 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It was a year of parades, tall ships, patriotic music, and national pride. Americans were thinking about history, legacy, and the future. The U.S. Mint honored the bicentennial by redesigning the reverse of certain coins, but the penny was left unchanged. Abraham Lincoln remained on the front, just as he had been since 1909. The Lincoln Memorial stayed on the back, a design first introduced in 1959. Why was the penny left out? One major reason was practicality. Pennies were produced in massive numbers for everyday use, and changing the design would have required enormous time and cost. So while other coins marked the celebration boldly, the penny became a quiet witness to history rather than a loud participant. That quiet role gives the 1976 penny a unique place in American coinage. Now let's talk about what this coin is made of. The 1976 Lincoln penny was struck using the classic copper-based composition that the U.S. Mint had used for decades. It contains 95% copper and 5% zinc. This gives it a solid feel and a warm reddish-brown color when well preserved. Each coin weighs about 3.11 grams and measures just over 19 millimeters across. The edge is smooth, with no ridges. These details matter because they help collectors identify genuine coins and spot unusual examples. The design itself is familiar but iconic. On the front, you see Abraham Lincoln facing to the right, with the words "In God We Trust" above his head. Liberty appears to the left and the date 1976 sits to the right. There is no letter beneath the date, which tells us it was made in Philadelphia. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, with the words "United States of America" and 1 cent. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, a detail many people miss. So if millions were made and the design is common, why does this penny matter? The answer lies in condition, rarity within the ordinary, and mistakes. Most 1976 no-mint mark pennies are only worth 1 or 2 cents today. But collectors are not searching for worn, scratched coins. They are looking for pennies that survived decades of circulation in unusually good shape. A 1976 penny that still has its original red copper color, sharp details, and no major marks can be far more desirable than you might expect. Coins like this are graded by professionals, and the highest grade examples are surprisingly scarce. Even more exciting are error coins. During mass production, mistakes happen. Some 1976 pennies were struck off-center, meaning the design is shifted to one side. Others show doubled lettering or numbers caused by a misaligned die. Some were struck on the wrong metal blank, while others display dramatic cracks or raised lines from damaged dies. These errors turn an ordinary penny into something rare and collectible. In real-world auctions, top-condition 1976 no-mint mark pennies have sold for impressive amounts. Circulated examples bring only pocket change, but uncirculated coins graded at the highest levels have sold for hundreds of dollars. Error coins can sell for even more, depending on how dramatic and well-preserved the mistake is. Collectors are willing to pay these prices because finding a perfect example from a year when billions of coins were handled, dropped, and scratched is not easy. With value comes risk, and that brings us to identification. To check if your 1976 penny is real, start with the basics. It should not stick to a magnet. If it does, something is wrong. The weight should be close to 3.11 grams. A small variation is normal, but a major difference is a warning sign. Look closely at the details. The lettering should be clear, not soft or blurry. The surface should not have bubbling or peeling, which can indicate damage rather than rarity. True mint errors look natural, not forced or altered. Also remember this: fake pennies are rare, but altered coins are not. Some people try to create fake errors by grinding, bending, or heating coins. These altered pieces have no collector value. If you believe you have something special, professional grading is the safest way to confirm it. There are also fun and surprising details about the 1976 penny that most people never hear. For example, while other coins proudly announce the bicentennial, the penny quietly continued the tradition started nearly 70 years earlier. In a way, it represents stability during celebration, a reminder that everyday life continued even during historic moments. Another interesting fact is that these copper pennies are now heavier and more copper-rich than modern cents. Today's pennies are mostly zinc with a thin copper coating. That means a 1976 penny actually contains more real metal value than many newer cents. Collectors also love this coin because it is accessible. You don't need to be wealthy to start looking for one. You might already have one in a jar, drawer, or old piggy bank. That sense of possibility keeps people searching. The 1976 no-mint mark Lincoln penny may not scream rarity at first glance, but it rewards patience, curiosity, and careful observation. It connects everyday Americans to a year of national pride and to a long tradition of U.S. coinage. Collectors today appreciate this coin not just for what it can be worth, but for what it represents. It is a small piece of history that passed through countless hands, survived decades of use, and still has stories left to tell. So the next time you see a penny dated 1976, don't dismiss it too quickly. Turn it over. Look closely. Check the details. You might just be holding a quiet survivor from America's bicentennial year. And sometimes, the most interesting treasures are the ones that were hiding in plain sight all along. Most people would walk right past this coin without a second thought. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. But the 1984 Lincoln penny with no mint mark has a quiet story behind it, and in certain cases, it can be far more valuable than anyone expects. What makes this simple penny so interesting is not just what it is, but what might be hiding in plain sight. The 1984 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced by the United States Mint. When a Lincoln penny has no mint mark, it means it was made at the Philadelphia Mint. For decades, Philadelphia pennies were released without any letter under the date, making them easy to overlook. In 1984, millions of these pennies entered circulation, passing through pockets, cash registers, and piggy banks across America. At first glance, this coin looks like any other modern Lincoln cent. On the front, you see Abraham Lincoln facing right, a design that has been used since 1909. Above his head is the phrase, "In God We Trust." To the left is the word liberty, and to the right is the date, 1984. On the back, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, with the words United States of America and 1 cent. Inside the memorial, if you look closely, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln seated in the center. The year 1984 was an interesting time in American history. The country was deep into the modern era, technology was advancing, and everyday items like coins were being produced faster than ever. The U.S. Mint was focused on efficiency and volume, striking hundreds of millions of pennies to keep up with daily commerce. The goal was not to create rare collectibles, but to make reliable money for everyday use. That's exactly why the 1984 penny is so fascinating to collectors today. When coins are produced in huge numbers, small mistakes can slip through unnoticed. And sometimes, those mistakes turn an ordinary penny into a collector's treasure. The 1984 Lincoln penny is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating on the outside. This change in composition began in 1982, when rising copper prices forced the mint to move away from solid copper pennies. As a result, the 1984 penny is much lighter than older Lincoln cents and has a bright, copper-colored appearance when new. While most 1984 pennies are worth just 1 cent, a small number have unique features that make them stand out. The most famous of these is known among collectors as the 1984 doubled ear error. This error appears on Lincoln's ear on the front of the coin. Instead of a single, clean ear, there is a noticeable doubling that makes it look thicker or slightly repeated. This doubling was caused during the die-making process, when the image used to strike the coin was accidentally impressed twice in slightly different positions. Once the faulty die was put into use, every coin struck from it carried that same doubled feature. What makes this error special is how clear it is. Unlike many doubling errors that require magnification to see, the doubled ear on the 1984 penny can often be spotted with the naked eye. This makes it one of the most recognizable modern penny errors. Collectors value this coin not because it is old, but because it is different. It represents a mistake that escaped quality control and ended up in circulation, where it could be found by anyone paying close attention. Over the years, several verified examples of the 1984 doubled ear penny have been sold at auctions and through private collectors. Lower-grade examples with wear from circulation have sold for several $100s. Well-preserved coins, especially those in uncirculated condition, have reached prices of $1,000 or more. Coins graded and authenticated by professional services tend to bring the highest prices. It's important to understand that not every 1984 no-mint mark penny is valuable. In fact, the vast majority are worth exactly 1 cent. The value comes from specific characteristics, condition, and verified errors. This is what separates a pocket coin from a collector's item. If you think you might have one of these pennies, there are a few things to check. Start by looking at the front of the coin under good lighting. Focus on Lincoln's ear. If it looks unusually thick, doubled, or shadowed, you may be seeing the famous error. A magnifying glass can help, but strong doubling can often be seen without tools. Next, check the condition of the coin. Coins with fewer scratches, less wear, and original shine are always more desirable. Avoid cleaning the coin, as cleaning can reduce its value significantly. Collectors prefer coins in their natural state, even if they show some age. Be cautious about fakes or altered coins. Some people try to create the appearance of doubling by damaging or modifying a normal penny. True double die errors have smooth, rounded doubling that looks like part of the original design, not rough or scratched. When in doubt, professional grading and authentication are the safest options. One surprising fact about the 1984 penny is how many of these error coins may still be out there. Because the error was not widely known at the time, many doubled ear pennies likely circulated for years before being noticed. Some may still be sitting in jars, drawers, or old collections, waiting to be discovered. Another interesting detail is that the 1984 doubled ear penny helped spark renewed interest in modern coin errors. For a long time, collectors focused mainly on very old coins. This penny proved that valuable discoveries could still be made in recent change, encouraging a new generation of collectors to pay closer attention. Collectors love this coin today because it combines accessibility with mystery. Anyone can find a 1984 penny. You don't need to buy an expensive collection or attend high-end auctions to start looking. All it takes is curiosity, patience, and a careful eye. This penny also tells a larger story about how money is made. It reminds us that even in highly controlled systems, human error plays a role. Those small imperfections become markers of history, capturing a moment when something didn't go exactly as planned. For many collectors, finding a 1984 doubled ear penny is not just about the money. It's about the thrill of discovery. It's about holding a simple coin and realizing it has a story far bigger than its face value. So the next time you come across a 1984 no mint mark Lincoln penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Turn it under the light. Study the details. Because sometimes, the most ordinary-looking coins carry the most unexpected surprises. And somewhere out there, another forgotten penny may be waiting to reveal its hidden value. Most people would walk right past this penny without a second glance. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. But what if I told you that a simple 1979 Lincoln penny with no mint mark could tell a hidden story about America, modern coin collecting, and why some everyday coins quietly become valuable over time? This is the story of the 1979 no mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that millions of Americans have held, spent, or forgotten in a jar, without realizing what makes it special. The 1979 Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced by the United States Mint during a time of change, inflation, and growing interest in coin collecting. When a penny has no mint mark, it means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. That detail alone often raises curiosity because many collectors associate missing mint marks with rarity. But with this coin, the story is more subtle, more realistic, and more interesting. To understand this penny, we need to go back to the late 1970s. In 1979, the United States was dealing with rising inflation, high gas prices, and economic uncertainty. Despite all of that, the penny remained a daily part of American life. It bought candy, made change, and filled pockets across the country. The Lincoln cent had already been around for 70 years by then, first introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday. By 1979, the Lincoln penny had a familiar design that most Americans recognized instantly. On the front, or obverse, was Abraham Lincoln's profile, designed by Victor David Brenner. This design had remained largely unchanged for decades, symbolizing stability during uncertain times. On the back, or reverse, were the Lincoln Memorial columns, introduced in 1959 to mark Lincoln's 150th birthday. The 1979 no mint mark penny was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not use a mint mark on pennies at that time. That means every 1979 penny without a letter under the date came from Philadelphia. In total, billions of Lincoln cents were produced in 1979 across all mints, with Philadelphia contributing a massive share. The metal composition of the 1979 penny is also important. It is made primarily of copper, about 95% copper with the remaining 5% zinc. This makes it part of the classic copper penny era, before the mint switched to mostly zinc pennies in 1982. Many collectors prefer these older copper cents because they feel heavier, sound different when dropped, and represent the end of a traditional era in American coinage. Design details matter more than most people realize. On a well-preserved 1979 penny, Lincoln's hair should show clear lines, his coat should be sharply defined, and the date should be crisp. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial should display visible steps and columns. Coins with weak details were often the result of worn dies or heavy circulation. So why does anyone care about a 1979 no-mint mark penny today? The answer lies in condition, errors, and collector demand. While most of these pennies are worth only face value, certain examples can be worth much more. Coins that were never circulated and remain in mint condition are far more desirable. These are often graded by professional services and assigned a score based on their preservation. A 1979 penny graded MS65 red or higher can be worth significantly more than 1 cent. In top grades, some have sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars at auction, not because they are rare in quantity, but because they are rare in perfection. Errors also play a major role in value. Some 1979 Lincoln pennies were struck with off-center designs, doubled lettering, clipped planchets, or other minting mistakes. These errors happen when something went wrong during the striking process. Error coins are always popular because each one is unique. A noticeable and authentic mint error on a 1979 penny can turn a common coin into a valuable collectible. There are also varieties that collectors look for closely. Some 1979 pennies show slight doubling on the date or lettering, caused by die issues rather than damage. While true doubled die examples from this year are not extremely famous, even minor varieties can attract interest from specialized collectors. Auction records tell a realistic but encouraging story. High-grade 1979 Lincoln pennies with no mint mark have sold for prices ranging from $20 to well over $100, depending on grade and eye appeal. Error examples can sell for more, sometimes reaching several $100s if the error is dramatic and well documented. Knowing how to identify a genuine coin is essential. A real 1979 no-mint mark penny should weigh about 3.11 grams and have a solid copper feel. The surface should not appear plated or altered. Be cautious of coins that look unusually shiny or have unnatural colors, as some pennies are artificially modified to appear more valuable. Magnification helps. Using a simple magnifying glass, look closely at the date, lettering, and rim. Authentic mint errors usually show smooth metal flow and natural wear patterns. Fake errors often show scratches, tool marks, or damage that occurred after the coin left the mint. One surprising detail about the 1979 penny is how often it still appears in circulation today. Many people unknowingly spend copper pennies without realizing their metal value alone is higher than modern zinc cents. This has led some collectors to quietly set aside precious 1,982 pennies, including 1979 examples, as part of long-term collections. Another fun fact is that 1979 pennies were among the last widely used copper cents, before rising metal prices forced the mint to change compositions. That makes them a small but meaningful piece of economic history. Collectors today love the 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln penny because it represents accessibility. You don't need to be wealthy to collect it. You might already own one. It invites curiosity, careful inspection, and patience. It teaches new collectors how condition and detail matter more than age alone. This coin also reminds people that value is not always obvious. Some treasures are hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to look closer. So the next time you see a 1979 penny without a mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Turn it over. Study the details. Ask yourself where it has been and what stories it might carry. Because sometimes, the most ordinary coins are the ones that quietly reward those who pay attention. And once you start looking closely at one penny, you may never look at your pocket change the same way again. Most people would walk right past this penny without a second glance. It looks ordinary, common, almost invisible. But what if I told you that a single detail on a 1988 Lincoln penny has made some collectors stop, look closer, and even pay far more than 1 cent for it? This is the story of the 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that sits quietly in jars, drawers, and old collections, yet carries history, hidden details, and surprising collector interest that many people never notice. The 1988 Lincoln penny is a 1 cent coin from the United States, featuring the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. When people hear "no mint mark," they often assume it means something is missing or unusual. In reality, no mint mark means the coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not place a mint mark on pennies during most years. By 1988, the Lincoln cent had already been part of American life for nearly 8 decades. Introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the Lincoln penny became the longest-running design in U.S. coinage history. Millions of Americans grew up handling this coin every day, often without realizing how much history it carried. The year 1988 sits near the end of the Cold War era, a time when the United States was undergoing economic change, technological growth, and political shifts. While the penny itself did not mark a major anniversary or redesign that year, it was part of a massive production run that kept everyday commerce moving. Pennies were still widely used, and the U.S. Mint produced them in enormous numbers to meet demand. The Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of Lincoln pennies in 1988. That high mintage is one reason why most 1988 no-mint mark pennies are considered common. But in coin collecting, value is not always about how many were made. It is often about condition, details, and mistakes that slipped through unnoticed. The 1988 Lincoln penny is made from zinc coated with a thin layer of copper. This composition began in 1982, when rising copper prices made it too expensive to produce solid copper pennies. As a result, the 1988 penny weighs 2.5 grams and has a bright copper appearance when new, though circulation often dulls its shine over time. On the front of the coin, you see Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln faces right, with the word "Liberty" to his left and the date 1988 to his right. Above his head is the familiar phrase "In God we trust." On no mint mark coins, there is no letter below the date, confirming it was struck in Philadelphia. The reverse shows the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959. If you look closely, you can actually see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, making this one of the most detailed small coin designs ever produced. Above the memorial are the words United States of America and EPLURIBUS UNUM, with 1 cent at the bottom. At first glance, nothing about this penny seems rare, but collectors know that value often hides in small details. One of the most important factors is condition. A 1988 penny that has never been circulated, with full original luster and no wear, can be worth significantly more than face value. Coins graded in high mint state conditions are far less common than people expect, especially decades later. Another source of value comes from errors. Errors happen when something goes wrong during the minting process. In 1988, some pennies were struck with off-center designs, where part of the coin appears blank. Others show doubled dies, where letters or numbers appear slightly doubled due to a misalignment in the dies used to strike the coin. Some collectors have also found 1988 pennies with unusual plating issues, such as bubbles, cracks, or missing copper coating that exposes the gray zinc beneath. These errors were never meant to leave the mint, yet some slipped into circulation and survived long enough to be discovered. While most 1988 no-mint mark pennies are worth 1 or 2 cents in worn condition, error coins can sell for much more. Minor errors might sell for $10 to $50, while dramatic and well-documented errors can bring hundreds of dollars depending on their appearance and rarity. High-grade examples are another story. A 1988 no-mint mark penny graded MS67 or higher by a professional grading service can sell for well over $100, sometimes more, if demand is strong. These coins are extremely clean, with sharp details, strong luster, and almost no visible marks under magnification. Collectors often look at auction records to understand real market value. Over the years, certified 1988 Lincoln pennies in top condition have sold at major auctions for prices that surprise non-collectors. While they won't rival famous rare cents from earlier centuries, they prove that even modern coins can become valuable under the right circumstances. Identifying a genuine 1988 no-mint mark penny is fairly simple. First, check the date on the front of the coin. It should clearly read 1988. Next, look just below the date. If there is no letter such as D or S, it was struck in Philadelphia. Then check the weight. A genuine 1988 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. Significant deviation could indicate damage or alteration. To spot potential errors, examine the coin under good lighting. Look closely at the lettering and numbers for signs of doubling. Check the edges for unusual shapes or incomplete strikes. On the surface, watch for exposed zinc, cracks, or raised lines that were not part of the original design. Fakes of 1988 pennies are rare, simply because the coin itself is common. However, altered coins do exist. Some people try to modify ordinary pennies to imitate error coins. This is why serious collectors rely on professional grading and authentication when significant money is involved. One surprising fact about the 1988 penny is how many are still hiding in plain sight. Because they are not considered rare by date alone, many people ignore them entirely. Yet every year, collectors continue to search rolls of pennies from banks, hoping to find pristine examples or genuine mint errors. Another interesting detail is that the 1980s marked a period when the quality of coin strikes began to decline slightly due to high production demands. This makes truly flawless coins from this era harder to find than many people expect, increasing their appeal to collectors who specialize in modern U.S. coinage. Collectors love the 1988 no-mint mark Lincoln penny not because it is legendary, but because it represents possibility. It reminds people that valuable coins are not always ancient or obvious. Sometimes they are coins you have handled hundreds of times without noticing. For newer collectors, this penny offers an affordable entry into the hobby. For experienced collectors, it presents a challenge, finding the best possible example among millions. And for everyday people, it carries a sense of mystery, the idea that something small and ordinary might hold unexpected value. As time passes, fewer high-quality examples survive. Coins get lost, damaged, or melted down. That slow disappearance is one reason collectors continue to watch modern pennies closely. What seems common today may not feel so common decades from now. So the next time you see a 1988 penny with no mint mark, pause for a moment. Turn it over in your hand. Look at the details. Think about where it has been, who used it, and how it survived all these years. It may only be worth a cent, or it might be something far more interesting. Because in the world of coin collecting, curiosity is often the first step toward discovery. And sometimes, the most ordinary coins have the most unexpected stories waiting to be told.